Buenos dias. Hello, good morning, and welcome back to the Smite Summer Finals here at DreamHack Valencia. Well, it's still pretty damn hot here, isn't it? But the games should be even hotter than what we saw yesterday. We're here in the semifinals, not just for PC, but in console, where we're gonna start off. These two teams looked fantastic, and that's why they made it outside of the first day into the second day, as I said, in the semifinals. These two console teams are gonna go head to head, and whoever winds up on top will continue till tomorrow, where of course they'll find up in the actual finals, and we'll crown a victor for the summer split itself. Later on today, we'll continue with the PC semifinals as well, eventually ending tomorrow in the finals, crowning a victor for that world as well. I'd ask you if you guys are excited, but I already know everybody just wants the games to begin. So you know what, with no further ado, let's toss it to our casters. It's Anatoly and it's Taco.
Thank you, F-Dot. I'm here joined on the stand with Taco with some console semifinal action. Team Rival against Soar Gaming. How are you feeling?
I mean, this is just one of those moments where Rival is yet again trying to sanctify EU and pretty much prove that they have what it takes to compete with the rest of these North American teams.
If we take a look at the bracket here, we're going to see what happened earlier on yesterday when Obey Alliance defeated Astral Authority. Actually, it was Astral Authority that got the better end of that one, so the brackets are a little bit incorrect there, but either way, going to Soar Gaming here, we're gonna see up on that stage the solo laner, StormyRays, a player that's been from the PC side of things, and speaking of PC, Kaedan in that jungle role.
Kaedan is also very familiar with Smite. He's been playing it for quite a long time and representing that jungle. I mean, he's been doing an excellent job so far this season, but of course, every jungler needs his mid laner, and that'll be Shaliber representing Soar in the mid lane.
A console veteran, Shaliber, trying to make another statement here in LAN, gonna be the new support player, relatively new rather, themedievaldoc, and that support role. Can't really read that note though, but either way, in that dual lane next to him is gonna be Zachsy, someone that you should be very familiar with in the console scene.
Medieval trying to give that cheeky shout out to his Twitter right there, but Zachsy is definitely a hunter that we all know and love, and he's been doing an excellent job at it. And speaking of, we have Rival, who are a couple of EU favorites. I mean, we've got Gnome over there in the solo lane.
He's gonna be up against StormyRays, but in that jungle role, we're gonna see Rapio, who's gonna be making a huge presence. You know, we've seen him time and time before in LAN, making great statements, but it's time for him to really shine here in Valencia. In that mid lane, Watson version 3.0, really trying to make something happen.
I mean, every single time they come to compete, he's gonna keep updating himself, but it's gonna be JacobHL as a support for Team Rival, trying to make some plays alongside of his hunter player, Dobson.
A relatively new player in the Team Rival. We'll see how he'll play in the LAN environment. You know, Team Rival has struggled a lot at LAN environment. They've been dominating the European online console world, but whenever it comes to LAN, they always just fall short compared to North America.
It can be difficult to improve when you're constantly top of your region. We've seen it happen before with other regions. This might take Oshi, for example, but I mean, I don't think that they're gonna let this slow them down in the slightest. I think this time they're actually gonna come out swinging against Soar.
Well, we're gonna go ahead and see once we do get into picks and bans how they compare to each other, but let's take a look at Zachsy and his opposition here, because Zachsy is one of these players that likes to play aggressive every given opportunity.
If he can play aggressive and get away with it, that's probably the more important aspect. Usually he's got his team to back him up whenever he tries to take up that aggressive stance, but he's gonna have to be careful with that because Dobson isn't really foreign to that sort of style of play either. He loves taking up that 1v1.
Absolutely, Dobson is no joke in the European console world. He's been making a lot of plays happen every given opportunity. He likes to play a lot of these mobile hunters, and whenever given the opportunity to do so, he will rotate to these team fights. So let's go ahead and jump into picks and bans for Team Rival against Soar Gaming.
And I mean, already these two teams have been anticipating this matchup for quite a while. Soar and Rival have both had an opportunity just from watching Obey and Astral set yesterday to really see and kind of get a feel for what these North American teams are kind of leaning towards. So that's a little bit of an advantage for Rival.
I always love seeing the little mini metas that develop within best of threes, best of fives. We saw yesterday Obey Alliance versus Astral Authority, how the meta just shifted. We saw the last pick Thor coming out of Chaotic Purpose in that set of game number 3, very important one. But going into picks and bans here, Soar already banning away Zeus, Sun Wukong, whereas Rival really not wanting to deal with the Susanoo in the jungle role.
I mean, completely reasonable. Eliminating the Susano and the Osiris means that its pressure factors are not going to have to worry about, but you can't get rid of all of them. Soar picking up that Ravana, he's been notorious for first pick selection, and I mean, in the hands of either Kaedan or it could potentially be going to StormyRays.
Absolutely, it's a very good flex pick, but whenever you're dealing with an aggressive backline penetrator such as Robin, you want to get that defensive support. So Geb being locked in for Rival right off the bat and trying to get a late game hunter here in Ram. I like the idea. Maybe could have went for the Fafnir to synergize off of it, but I like the protection instead.
I think they're just looking for the survivability route, and they really want that shield cleanse. That's going to be pretty crucial against the Robin, considering that route. And the Thor being locked in for Soar just means that CC seems to be the game plan already. Comparing that with the Thoth, I mean, it's looking pretty solid for Soar so far.
A lot of longer range abilities here already between those two picks from Soar. You got the Thor on one hand with the semi-global presence of Anvil of Dawn. Again, you got the Thoth as well for Shaliber that can just complement so well once he drops that wall, extending the range of both his in-hands and abilities.
And there's another guy that we've been seeing all too often lately, the Camazotz, is going to be locked in for Rival. Rapio, somebody who really likes leaning towards those PC kind of heavy junglers.
You never really know if Gnome would bring that out in the solo lane either. He's been known to flex his stuff every now and then, bringing out the Guardians, bringing aggressive warriors, and every now and then he could be playing some of these assassins such as the Camazotz, but we'll see as the picks and bans progresses further. Medusa and Chronos really targeting that away against Zachsy.
They're really not trying to give Zachsy any of those kind of comfort picks that we've seen him lean towards in the past throughout this split, but meaning that Rival, they don't have their solo laner locked in yet. Soar aren't taking any chances eliminating that Bellona.
Vamana being locked in, very safe solo laner for Gnome, can clear from a distance. Even if he gets out-pushed by the Robin in the earlier stages of the laning phase, he'll safely clear under his tower with that Umbrella Ring. And there's one defensive support on Rival. They're going to complement that on Soar with the Sylvanus.
Sylvanus, Rival or Soar are trying to really combat into Rival with a lot of pressure already. That's kind of what Sylvanus is notorious for, establishing that early clear potential, which will be excellent combating against the Ram with those astral arrows.
And not only that, that just adds more pressure in terms of the crowd control. They have two nice stuns between the Thor and the Thoth, and then they got a huge AoE knockup in the Sylvanus. It's very difficult to really get out of that one, because once you get knocked up, the beats doesn't help you get down any quicker.
And this is what I'm absolutely loving about Soar's composition right now. Recognizing that they're going to have that clear potential with the Sylvanus, they're picking up that Chronos for the ADC, and Zachsy, this is such an excellent pick for him because it's going to allow him to be aggressive with that Sylvanus, but at the same time, he'll have a very strong likelihood of making it into that mid to late game stage where Chronos really prospers.
They're going to have great objective damage, great tower sieging as well with that Chronos. Sometimes when you look at magical hunters, you look at Freya, hard to push towers. Chronos, though, is really great at doing so with that accelerate. But Morrigan, last pick for Team Rival. It's going to be really interesting to see what option he goes for once he transforms.
I mean, there's a lot of different opportunities on the table. We saw yesterday on the PC side of things where Yaman kept opting for that secondary Camazotz ultimate off of adapting. I wouldn't be surprised to see Rival kind of leaning for the same thing in the side of console.
That's very true, actually. If Rival can get two Camazotz out there with a Geb, it's going to be a very backline penetrating composition, especially with the Vamana. This Ram as well will have so much safety to be able to basically cast in hands anytime he wants.
The only issue here that I would have with Rival is that they have a lot of single target damage, not really a whole lot of AoE burst potential. Meanwhile, you've got Soar, who has that CC lockdown possibility, so they can keep consistently poking away, and so Rival's gonna have to be really careful with their positioning and wait until the Geb shields really start coming online.
So who do you favor here in the mid to late game?
I would definitely have to favor Rival simply because of the Ram Camazotz combination, and you always have a Morrigan, and Morrigan is just so incredibly difficult to shut down if she can make it past that mid-game stage.
So how would you try to even shut down a Morrigan? Because we saw yesterday with Energy bringing that out onto Yaman, but he was still able to just weave his way through wards every single time.
I mean, it's the Loki of the mids, isn't it? Having that invis possibility just really opens up so many different avenues as far as gank potential and just keeping everybody on edge on the side of Soar. They're trying to combat this because they do have the Thoth, they've got the Chronos, so the late game magical damage is there. The only concern is where is that physical aggression really going to come from? Thor and Robin, if it keeps going later and later, are really just going to have to default to being secondary frontline peeling possibilities for these two hyper carries.
That's very true, but Kaedan on the Store should be able to really rotate all across the map with his global presence, especially with a long-range Thoth coming out of Shaliber. But let's head into game number 1, Soar Gaming against Team Rival.
And this is something that they've been waiting for so long. Both of these teams just incredibly excited. You already know that Rival are just so eager for redemption. They've been waiting for it for so long, and this is their probably their last opportunity to really prove that they have what it takes.
Rival really needs to be able to try to get their first LAN victory under their belts. Last LAN, or the last previous 2 LANs that they were attending, they actually got defeated by Soar, and Zachsy left alone in a 1v2 in the duel lane. I like what he's doing by recognizing that he's gonna lose his red buff. He's gonna just steal away the 2 purple ogre minions, getting some golden experience under himself.
And I like what Soar is doing with this mentality of already invading the side of Rival. Stripping away that blue buff from Gnome is going to make things really difficult for the Vamana, who's kind of mana dependent early on.
Especially considering Vamana already struggles early on, enough as it is, against such an aggressive bully god such as Robin. So you take the blue buff away from him, and StormyRays is going to be able to get his own. Now you're creating more of a level gap between StormyRays and Gnome. So I could see a lot of 1v1 potential that StormyRays could look to try to engage on.
Not to mention, having the Sylvanus start in that mid lane just ensures that the Thoth is going to be as safe as possible. Thoth, again, is not one of those mid laners that is pretty great at clearing early on. So if you have the Sylvanus there to force that lane pressure and just rely on Zachsy pretty much maintaining a safe positioning, I think all around it just benefits the team greatly.
We're going to see a little bit of a pause as one of the players does have some technical difficulties. We're going to be able to get back into the game momentarily here, but the first game between Soar Gaming and Rival, we saw yesterday, Obey Alliance against Astral Authority. It went the distance, and there was nothing to really develop between these 2 teams in terms of, it was an even game, right? But this game so far, early on, we've seen a little bit of a disparity in the duel lane from Soar, whereas they're leaving Zachsy alone, but they're taking advantage of it by negating the farm of Gnome.
I'd imagine, if anything, it's going to be Soar needing to take up that mantle of initiating or determining the pacing of the game. Because if they wait a little bit too long, then it's going to permit Rival to come online with that dual lane composition of the Geb and the Ram. And once these rotations start factoring in, things are going to become really hectic for both sides, but especially for Soar, considering that they're going to constantly have to worry about that Morrigan.
And I'm also, if I'm Rival, I'm really worried about Kaedan on this Thor. He has not left Gnome alone quite yet. It's already past the 2-minute mark, and he's been hugging the soul lane quite a lot, even getting his back harpies in the soul lane. They really just want to leave Zachsy alone to farm himself and get as much experience as possible.
It's not even so much targeting Gnome as much as it is they're also trying to take shots at Rapio doing this, because if they eliminate all that farm from the soul lane side, it's going to restrict how much farm Rapio has for himself.
That's true. We saw Homie Efe struggle quite a lot on the Camazotz yesterday in the PC side of things. He could just not get any farm once we saw a lot of rotations in terms of shutting down his jungle. So a very similar strategy that Kaedan is deploying in this game.
And Soar just trying to establish the fire elemental control, considering that Rival were able to secure those oracles early on. So all around, pretty even spread of the global gold.
Sitting at level 5, Kaedan is positioning himself at that Fire Giant pit. This is what you really want to do as a Thor player, because you can use that ultimate to either dunk down soul lane or the mid lane. You create a lot of confusion in both lanes, and as Rival, you have to respect that global presence, and you might peel back a little bit more than anticipated.
Stormy kind of just trying to take up that same bully position that we've been so accustomed to seeing from these Robin players. I really want to see some big early game rotations from StormyRays, trying to root down the Morrigan in the mid lane.
Speaking of rooting people down, MedievalDoc on the Sylvanus, electing to go for a very early sprint. Talk to me about the different relic selections for support and why he went for a sprint this game.
The mindset behind Sprint is that there's a few slows on Rival that can be kind of difficult to get away from, and plus, when you want to disengage as a unit, because Soar's composition relies a little bit more on staying together. If any of them tends to break off, then somebody's going to end up getting picked. So as long as they can survive as a unit, and that's exactly what Sprint's going to permit them to do.
And it seems that he wants to prevent, he'd rather go for the AoE team support relic rather than the initiating for Blink, because on the other side, we see JacobHL going for that Blink, trying to really get the most use out of his Cataclysm and knockup.
And that's definitely what you need to do on a Geb. You can't just sit back and allow the aggression to come to you. Rival need to be the initiators with that comp. They've got the Camazotz, they've got the Geb, both excellent factors for starting up a fight.
We're gonna see Rival take some of these oracles down. Soar, MedievalDoc is gonna get engaged on. Nice little dash from JacobHL, doing a little bit of damage. He's gonna force out the sprint from MedievalDoc, and that's just gonna be a small disengage.
And it could have been a pretty dangerous situation, but it doesn't look like Rival's quite ready to give that one up just yet. They are going to fall back now, but this grouping from Rival could still be a little bit dangerous.
We're gonna see a rotation actually from Watson in here as well, making a lot of presence. Now the snipes coming through, misses the second and the third. Diving onto this tier 1 tower, the bat out of hell coming through for the first blood.
That was an insane amount of commit just to lock down MedievalDoc, and there's really no response yet from Soar because they took out the tree. I mean, when your frontliner's gone, the best thing you can possibly do is disengage.
And I'm really surprised there. I actually thought that it was Gnome making the rotation, but it was Watson transforming into Gnome, going for those ability-based hits. Whenever you use Morrigan, you want to get off your whole rotation before going into the ultimate, and there's a lot of interesting ability transformations that you can go for. You can go for Kaedan Thor, does a decent amount of damage, but Vamana does quite a bit here at level 7 also.
Yeah, but the downside for Soar is that when a team expends 4 ultimates to lock down your support underneath the tower, and they can't really have much of a response because everybody else from Rival was disengaging, trusting that Rapio would be able to clean that one up with a bat out of hell.
And Rival did a great job about baiting that sprint earlier on with that Cataclysm knock-up combination. Very aggressive dash from Dobson as well after they got those oracles. It just seemed that MedievalDoc was slightly out of position. He probably wanted to drop a ward somewhere around that side of the map, but it was just a little too late.
Well, Medieval's certainly going to have to be a little bit more careful about his pathing, and there's the ward that got him in trouble in the first place. And Rival, I mean, I love the initiative there that they took up. They're certainly not just looking to sit back and let Soar kind of get away with the free farm.
Absolutely. These supports are both going to be pretty easy targets with the exception of Geb's shield, whereas MedievalDoc sustain, it takes a little bit of time to get the full effect of the healing. You can still kind of burn through that if you have the burst damage. So I'm really looking for Soar Gaming to make sure that if MedievalDoc goes anywhere in the jungle, that somebody's going to be relatively close to follow up.
Well, Rival certainly have a lot of mobility available to them, and that swift wing pickup as well for JacobHL is only going to permit him to rotate even faster.
We've seen a few roles actually pick that one up. We haven't really seen it in the solo lane because players will still opt to go for that teleport, but in the jungle we've seen that quite a bit. And in some supports, we saw actually an Athena support yesterday in the PC side of things pick that one up.
I mean, EU's just been loving this swift wing lately, and there's got to be some kind of strategy behind it because it seems to be working.
Mobility is key in Smite. Even that 5% can make an impact. MedievalDoc not going to find that pull through the distance, but it's actually StormyRays caught out of position. Rapio finding the second kill for his team. Kaedan trying to find a response, but he elects not to dive in.
Better to not go all in right there, because even if he gets a stun off onto Rival, the way that he could get caught with CC out of position just isn't worth the risk.
So far, so good for Rival. They got the 2 kills, and they're controlling some of these neutral camps. Not really forcing anything quite heavily yet with the Gold Fury. They don't want to push any towers. They don't really have the damage necessary to melt them down, as well as all these respawn timers being so short, only at the 8-minute mark.
And there's only just the slightest goal lead in favor of Rival. Zachsy taking quite a lot of poke from that ultimate from Dobson, but he'll be just fine. I mean, it is Chronos after all. He probably still has his ultimate available to him, so nothing to really be too concerned about just yet.
And he basically hugged MedievalDoc for a little bit of sustain from the Wisp, so he's not going to be having any issues, even clearing the wave with a level 10 Chronos with a red buff. Penboots has finished on that Hunter. Going for the Bombus Mask just to be able to get some more sustain in the jungle. Since he was left alone in a 1v2 quite often, it was very easy for him to clear some of those camps.
And here's that aggression that we're used to seeing from these 2 Hunters, both of them looking for the poke out rather than the clear on the wave.
And we're seeing a lot of aggression because I think that these 2 players have something to prove for one another. We really haven't seen the mix over between NA versus EU in the console world compared to EU. So this is going to be a relatively new matchup for Zachsy and Dobson. So they really want to see who's got the stuff.
And I mean, right now it's seeming like Rival does, considering their 2-0 lead. And granted, it's not much, and actually Soar with pretty efficient farming, closing that first blood gap.
They just can't find the stuff after the stuff Rival, despite getting some of these Oracle Harpies, despite getting some of these mid Harpies on top of it, it's just Soar controlling the pace of the jungle side. We saw Kaedan just shut down a lot of farm from Rapio in that early game, shutting down a lot of that blue buff as well from Gnome, not being able to get the better end of that one, which is why we're seeing StormyRays feeling a little more confident than he needed to be. Finding that second death for his team was not something that he wanted to do, so I'm sure he's going to peel it back now.
They definitely got to keep an eye on Rapio, though, on this Camazotz. That's certainly a god that can carry when given a lead. Soar, with an interesting grouping, they're ready to start brawling over these objectives.
I think they just want to bait out an engagement, maybe force out the Blink Cataclysm out of JacobHL and then potentially look to re-engage. It's a little bit of a risky play, but it's going to be Kaedan going into the sky, looking for Rapio. He's not going to connect onto anything. Also saving his hammer, shooting out the stun from Watson.
That was a very strong sustain, too, from Medieval, making sure that even if he did take that poke from the Morrigan, Kaedan would be just fine.
And we're seeing a lot of engagement here yet again in this dual lane. Zachsy getting the better end of Dobson, just poking him out ever so slightly. There's no real sustain here, no gauntlets coming from the Ram. He's electing to go for the Ironwood branch.
I mean, it's safer for him to pick up this magical attack speed item because it makes it so much easier to combat with the Silver Branch Row, just because he doesn't have to worry about Zachsy having as much magical power whenever he's looking for those boxing scenarios. Plus, Zachsy and they're having to worry about a Thoth and a Chronos.
We're seeing MedievalDoc try to go for the pull. He's not going to be able to find a nice quadruple Cataclysm from JacobHL. The re-engagement from Shaliber, but nice double knocker from MedievalDoc.
And it's going to be Shaliber with the ultimate, but it's just off the mark. It only lands with the Dobson, but he's up in the air, cleaning up MedievalDoc with his Rama ultimate.
That's going to be the third kill for the team, but a nice cleanup by Zachsy, finding one. So low is Watson on the backside. Shaliber getting a second kill for Soar Gaming, but not done yet. StormyRays diving in. He wants the third one, and he'll get it.
The Geb Shield isn't going to be enough to save the life of Rapio, and right now it's going to be JacobHL on the run, but the mark was just off with that stun, and it's going to be Kaedan actually falling in the mid lane to Gnome.
Watson and Gnome, they're not able to really get off the plays earlier on, but Gnome making the nice rotation this time around. This is what Vamana's truly capable of. Nice little stun by Shaliber from the distance, extending that stun range, but what was it, a 3-for-1 at the end of or 3-for-2 rather. Soar getting the better end of that one, but they're not going to find any objectives quite yet. A nice little bait onto the JacobHL Cataclysm. I thought it was going to be a way bigger play from Rival.
It was so unfortunate for Soar that Shaliber wasn't quite ready with the final judgment from the Thoth off that Sylvanus ultimate. I think that would have been a completely devastating situation for Rival had he been able to connect with that off the two that were lined up from that Sylvanus ult. But all around, very strong counter engage from Soar.
It's very unfortunate for MedievalDoc that he wasn't really a part of any of those assists either in the team fight, because he does have Height of the Urchin completed, whereas we're seeing a little bit of a staggered Urchin from Jacob, considering he went for that Swift Wing beforehand, and that is going to allow this Geb to catch up a little bit once the team fights continue in about a minute's due time, really waiting on the timing of that Blink Relic to come off cooldown.
The sooner that he gets his stacks online, the sooner that Medieval can choose to be a little bit more aggressive with this Sylvanus. Right now, it's really just been Rival kind of initiating every single team fight, and that's kind of what you expect from a team that opts for Blink on the Geb.
But do you expect MedievalDoc to go for Blink at level 12 or a different defensive team relic?
I think that he could probably be safe, not opting for the Blink and just looking for a secondary active, such as possibly a Frenzy or a Meditation. Even the Shell, I think, could also be incredibly strong for Soar.
Frenzy wouldn't be even a bad idea, considering Kaedan and Shaliber have a huge burst damage potential, and Zachsy is gaining the levels really quickly. He's sitting at level 14, highest in the game, tied with StormyRays, his solo laner that's been quietly farming after that early death.
And that's the concerning part for Rival, because if there's one thing you don't want to allow a Chronos to do, it's free farm.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of free farming out of him. He's already completed the Bancroft's Talon, working on more mobility, gonna be the Wing Blade more than likely. It's a great idea, trying to limit some of the slow potential, especially against the Vamana, and you're looking at a Camazotz as well.
and not to mention the Geb in case you get caught by that first ability, but it's actually gonna be Zachsy trying to get caught right now on JacobHL, but it's Kaedan who ends up falling instead to Dobson.
Kaedan couldn't really find the Anvil of Dawn that time around. Nice clean pick from Rival, taking a lot of damage. Is Jacob forced to retreat? However, Soar get the slight objective. They get the Oracle Harpies to get more golden experience and that 1-minute vision around the Gold Fury.
And that's kind of what you want to see from Rival. Anytime that Kaedan's looking to go in, you just immediately lock him down with that Morrigan stun and just burst him.
I really haven't seen Kaedan do too much in terms of connecting some of his ultimates, and because StormyRays made this rotation, Gnome, being a Vamana that he is, he's just gonna sit in this lane and completely split push, and that's what the goal is for either a solo or a hunter. If you can find the opportunity to split push a tower, you gotta do it.
It's pretty unfortunate as well because that just opens up so much map pressure now for Rival. It means that when Gnome's making these rotations, he's not gonna have to worry as much about a tower being poked out because even if he loses his T1, he's already taken Stormy, so what's he got to lose?
And as a solo laner, whenever you do clear a tower, you're sitting at level 14, you got some defensive items online, you want the rotations to come to your lane. You want more players in your lane whenever Gold Fury is available to allow your team to get that objective, get the gold, and make that play happen.
And I mean, so far, not really too much of a Gold Fury attempt from these two teams. Really just been either side trying to bait out the initiation. I'm a little bit surprised that Rival didn't look for much more follow-up after getting the clean pick onto Kaedan, but it's probably because of how much they had to expend in order to shut him down.
I mean, if you think about it, both of these teams are coming into this game a little bit cold. They had to wait for Obey and Astral yesterday watching that game. They're still kind of feeling each other out here in the first game of this best-of-3 set. So I wouldn't be surprised if things picked up as the game progresses, especially as we're going to head into game 2.
Already though, so much is on the line for both of these teams because typically whoever draws first blood has got the momentum to keep in mind. So neither side really wanted to start off the day with a loss.
No, not quite yet. In the dual lane, still looking for more trades. Zachsy has been getting the slight better end of Dobson. He is sitting at that 1 level margin. We haven't really talked about the mid laners too much though, as we're gonna see a different style of build. Spirit of Desolation here on the Morrigan, whereas the Book of Thoth completed rather late by Shaliver.
Shaliver and the kind of just idea behind the Book of Thoth is you want the power spike from that initial mana cost. And on Thoth, it could be a strong acquisition. He is going to have to be concerned though because Watson chose to find that power spike with the Spear of Desolation.
And the Spirit of Desolation is going to provide you a little bit of cooldown reduction, more penetration, so you're really looking for that really big burst. We're going to see an engagement here by JacobHL with that Blink Cataclysm, but no one else can really cut the distance as quickly as the Geb, so he's going to have to retreat, and Kaedan doing a great job zoning the rest of Rival with a clutch wall.
And now that these Geb shields are starting to be a little bit more maxed out on that ability, it's able to eat up just a little bit more of Shaliver's damage. Kaedan was kind of just looking for that cutoff with the Thor wall, but just not enough time to be able to buy against a Rival. So JacobHL is going to be pretty safe for the most part.
But if you're Soar here, you gotta force an engagement here without the ultimate from Geb or the Blink, right?
I think they're looking for it. I mean, that's so much poke out damage onto JacobHL. I wouldn't be surprised if he looks for a back here, and then when he does, Soar needs to jump right away into either that grouping in the middle lane and look for forcing another fight while he's gone.
Soar gonna clear out the mid, heading towards the Gold Fury, thinking about it, but it's actually MedievalDoc that's backing in that mini-map, really wanting to complete some item here. Finishing off that Wing Blade is gonna give him that nice little health, extra mobility to get in position, and actually going for the horrific Emblem second relic instead of the Blink or the Shell.
You've got to appreciate the slows in a match like this. I mean, when you're trying to combat slows with slows, and I think the horrific Emblem could be very potent against Rival's draft.
Absolutely, Zachsy still always that 1 level lead, still out trading Dobson with this red buff of Chronos that's sitting at level 17, having so much mobility with this Wing Blade. I'm really surprised that he opted not to go for the Fatalis, but sometimes that extra health is really what you need to be able to get off your ultimate.
The health and the self-peel, he's going to have enough movement speed if that Wing Blade is procced anyway. So as long as he trusts in himself to land those auto attacks, I don't think he's going to be too concerned about anything else.
Heading into the 19-minute mark, neither team really wanting to flirt with the Gold Fury quite yet. We saw a lot of engagements by JacobHL with his Blink Cataclysm Geb. Soar have decided decided to take their foot off the gas pedal with Kaedan, not being on the mark with some of these Thor ultimates, really wanting to allow Rival to force the engagements and try to counteract that instead.
And not really a lead in either direction. I mean, you saw just a second ago, it was barely a 50 difference in XP. And when it comes to that little, you can tell the initiation wants to be made somewhere. Rapio eating a huge chunk of damage.
We were talking about the burst damage between Thor and Thoth. Despite that Geb shield being applied there onto Rapio, the damage is still being shown, evident, taking about more than 25% of his health pool, and now with that little bit of poke, Soar feeling confident to at least position themselves around this gold.
But it's going to be Rival's Sentry World that's on the Gold Fury, so Soar definitely have to keep that in mind, that they might not necessarily have the vision superior to Rival. And what I'm really loving, though, about Kaedan is that he opted for that Brawlers facing off against the Camazotz.
It's very important because not only does Camazotz have that sustain off of that second ability, but the way the passive works is whether there's a death on your side or the enemy side, you can sit in that pool, get some of that sustain back, and really fight in that puddle.
And both of these teams, I mean, we've gone over it time and time again, they're really just trying to feel each other out with this one. They don't really want to over-aggress or overextend, but the longer you let a game go without initiating any huge team fights, the longer those death timers start to climb.
Heading past the 20-minute mark, these respawn timers will start extending slightly, still not wanting to pull the trigger on the Gold Fury quite yet. The Sentry Ward and the regular warding around this objective has been favoring out Rival for the time being. Soar Gaming had the timing of the Oracles, but complete this objective, and they'll get the 1-minute vision.
But Rival still has their Sentry Ward kind of just chilling on that Gold Fury, so either side's going to know if the other tries to jump onto it.
What's it going to take for some of these teams to start going for Gold Fury? Who's going to be the player to force it?
They need a pick. I think for Rival, what they're trying to do is they're trying to eliminate either Kaedan or even potentially Zachsy, although Zachsy will be a much more difficult target to shut down. You kind of don't want to worry as much about Thoth because Shalimber's been playing a little bit more passive on this Thoth, kind of just trying to hug Medieval the whole time. So if they can cause a separation and just take out Kaedan really, because he's the one that tries to initiate the fight.
It seems that he's been slowing down a little bit though, because his Thor ultimates has not been the most clean, I would say, compared to other players. So it seems that he's going to be relying on MedievalDoc, setting him up for some of these roots or the ultimates, maybe even Shalimber from a distance. Once he dashes in, extends that wall, that stun is going to hit from such a great distance. Not only that, Kaedan can find some potential setup. I'm expecting Soar Gaming to really wait for Rival to kind of go in with that Blink Cataclysm and then wall everybody else off the same way Kaedan did earlier on.
Well, the best engagements that Soar have had so far have been the counter engagement, so it's probably a better option for them to just let Rival instigate every single fight, because at least that way they know how to respond, and that could potentially be a drawback in the long run if they keep choosing to only respond to what Rival is putting out.
Did you see the damage that Shalimber did there? Just a
Yeah,
little
that's
bit
kind
of
of disgusting.
poke. Without the Geb shield, Shalimber can really start chunking some of these members, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's exactly what he's going to do. Even chunking out Geb potentially would be good enough. He doesn't necessarily have to use his abilities on the wave every single time, and yet again, still finding a lot of damage onto Dobson.
I mean, we just talked about Shalimber's damage, but that was a pretty devastating amount of HP that Dobson just took from Zachsy, and that was only on, what, 2 abilities?
Sitting at level 19, Chronos, he has the Bancroft's Talon completed. Obsidian Shard having a lot of magical penetration. Starting up the Gold Fury, Kaedan in the sky, looking for his target in the backline. Who's it gonna be? The Watson is gonna get dunked on, but a nice purification beats, buying him some time.
And now it's going to be Kaedan who's actually catching the counter engage from Rival. He's up in the air. I don't think that Dobson's going to be able to find him.
Not able to find that last snipe from the Rama, but it's JacobHL that takes the first spill in this engagement. Nice Aegis from Shalimber. He's trying to juke some of these bats. He even finds a kill before going down himself. So far, it's a 2-for-1 for Soar.
But Dobson's straight in the middle of everybody that he does not want to be surrounded by. Zachsy trying to get away now from Gnome and Rapio on the backside. Dobson trying to find the kill on Medieval.
Zachsy lives under the tier 2 tower with a great jukes. I'm really surprised there. MedievalDoc, though, he's going to fall back from the grave, actually, back from surviving the engagement, as Kaedan making sure he zones everyone else away. So many deaths on both sides. 4 for 2 at the end of the day. I'm really surprised Zachsy survived that one.
That's favoring Soar every single time. I mean, when you're only losing 2 members and one of them's your support, that is a win every single time. Kaedan now trying to put the beat down onto Gnome, who's actually going to be forced out of this Gold Fury area, and now this is Soar's Gold Fury to try and take away.
Shaliber now reviving. They don't have that really big oof burst damage to clean it up, but it's actually the nice rotation from Jacob. Unfortunately, mistiming his knockup, and that's going to be another death, though, for a rival. They lose the first Gold Fury of the game, and despite getting that first blood for their side of the squad, it's just not enough. Now Soar Gaming built themselves a 3,000 gold lead.
When you blink into 3 people, you kind of just gotta hope that the shockwave is gonna be enough to secure it. Unfortunate circumstance for Rival, and you gotta love this from Soar as well. Jumping immediately from the Gold Fury off of that pick from JacobHL, straight to the Portal Demon, trying to keep the pressure going.
Kaedan diving the backline, really trying to zone away Watson while the rest of his team is starting up this Portal Demon, really trying to secure it. It's gonna be going for Soar. Nice little final judgment from Shaliber. That bat out of hell from Rapio wasn't really enough damage to steal away that one.
Little bit lucky from Soar. Shaliber was slightly off the mark with the timing on that one. Portal Demon was alive with probably 1 HP.
That's always really unfortunate as a mage. You're sitting at level 17, you have a little bit of penetration with the boots and the Spear of Desolation, and you're expecting that ultimate to really obliterate it. You give a little bit of hope to your opponent, and then you just take it away anyway.
I think the main thing to take away from that engagement by Soar was Kaedan going up in the air and immediately locking onto Watson, just forcing out his actives immediately, which permitted the rest of Soar to just kind of dump all of their damage onto Watson. And the way that everybody from Rival broke up just really allowed Soar to get in there.
Jacob forced to go into the Cataclysm just for the CC immunity, but getting completely eliminated by Zachsy, sitting at this level 20 Chronos. Nice little pull onto Rapio. Still not done yet, trying to find more kills, for having to go into the sky and trying to escape, but Zachsy's not having any of that one.
And now it's actually going to be Dobson trapped on the backside with 3 members of Soar surrounding him. Meanwhile, StormyRays, he's a warrior. He's just chasing Watson down the entire time. Gnome able to find the return kill onto Zachsy at least, but Shaliber cleaning up Dobson as soon as he comes back down.
4 dead members from Rival, not on the mark with that final judgment, unfortunately. Could have been a deicide, but despite the death of Zachsy, a 4 for 1. They're able to find the tier 2 tower on the right-hand side, and I wouldn't be surprised here, Taco, if Soar Gaming go for Fire Giant.
I would prefer to see them wait for Zachsy to come back online, simply because you really want to let that Chronos, who's going to be the primary person for knocking out those objectives, have that Fire Giant buff surrounding him. And considering how dominant these team fights have been for Soar lately, I think it's pretty safe for them to wait until that moment arrives.
Sure, you're going to have level 20 Vamana on Gnome, still alive to contest it. JacobHL had just revived as well. Having that Swift Wing, he's going to have the mobility to get towards that Fire Giant if necessary. So a nice little patient play from Soar Gaming, despite having the 4-on-2 power play.
I mean, playing with discipline is something that every team needs to adapt to, especially in a LAN environment. Soar have really been moving together as a whole unit, and that's kind of why they've been finding the favorable end of these engagements against Rival.
And themedievaldoc has been hitting some really nice pulls on some of these engagements, really doing a great setup with his ultimate, knocking up multiple Rival members, and it's just the sustain from those Wisps as well to be able to prolong the team fight.
And now it's going to be JacobHL yet again, the focus here for Soar. Final judgment already out from Shaliber, really just trying to put the down the Gnome.
Nice pull onto Gnome yet again, forcing out his ultimate. Rapio getting stunned out. He really wants to find the kill onto themedievaldoc. The snipes are not good, but Gnome with a big baby bat is going to find the kill.
Kaedan's up in the air, though. He's not ready to let it go. Stacked up is Rival, and it's going to be Rapio falling down to Kaedan.
Nice little cleanup by him. Zachsy finding one. Watson returning the favor onto Shaliber. JacobHL nowhere to go. Kaedan going to fall as well. A lot of dead members here from Soar Gaming.
And now it's StormyRays really just trying to pick out a target for who he wants to lock down. It's going to be the mage yet again. Zachsy on the run from Gnome.
So close with Umbrella Ring, but StormyRays is not done yet. It was a 3 for 3, but he's going to make that a 4 for 3 in his team's favor. Not going to be able to chase down the little baby, but instead, Soar Gaming still slightly on the better end of that one.
But that's the thing about Rival. They keep leaving Watson and Dobson alone. If these two, I mean, I get it. Zachsy's 1 HP. He probably shouldn't have survived in that situation, but at least try the peel that your mid laners need.
It's very difficult to lock down this Chronos that has the wing blade. We were talking about it before, just how much mobility this item provides, and that extra health, that 300 health, could be the difference between getting off that ultimate for a second life or just taking a spill in the graveyard.
Remember how low Zachsy was when he was running away from Gnome?
Was it the Bumbus Mask that gave him all that sustain, or just a
It
straight up
wasn't even
life?
the Bumbles. I mean, Bancroft's as well.
Yeah.
Just all around, really smart because he doesn't even have.
Yeah, he sold it.
Yeah, it's really just a lifesteal from that Bancroft combined with Chronos kit as is. It's just so much sustain on the side of Soar, and really the only anti-heal coming out of Rival is going to be Rapio with that Brawlers, but that's just not enough against this composition.
There's also a Pestilence from Gnome, so if he does dive the backline onto Zachsy, he could find some of that anti-healing as well. Soar Gaming trying to go for that Gold Fury on the left-hand side, do secure the second one in the game in their favor. Now with an 8,000 goal lead, but heading into the 30-minute mark, still a pretty comfortable lead here.
But nearly a 10,000 experience difference. I mean, 9.4K, that is pretty drastic, especially considering these two drafts.
Well, almost level 20 is Rapio, not too far out as other members as well. Shaliber finding a little bit of a poke onto Gnome. Nice little Geb shield, but it's StormyRays that always wants to be in that front line, getting off damage even against the enemy soul laner. It seems that if there's anyone forcing the issue, it's going to be StormyRays.
Stormy has just been all over the place for Soar. I mean, completely zoning out Watson, it feels like. At first, you thought that the Morrigan was really going to be able to take up off the air, but it's mostly just been Watson kind of ulting defensively on this Morrigan, typically using that Camazotz ultimate that he turns into to try and get away from StormyRays.
There's a difference of a playstyle between Watson on this Morrigan and the way Yaman was playing it yesterday on the Morrigan. Very sneaky Morrigan yesterday. Today, not so much, because it seems that Soar Gaming really have Watson's number. It's really difficult to get away, though, to be fair, against a Thor that can see you from the sky.
The problem is that JacobHL is kind of just being made the focal target here for Rival yet again, trying to get the big Cataclysm off, and it is going to be Shaliber dying.
To lead it, but Zachsy getting answered in return. Jacob still very low, diving in the bat form. StormyRays finds one in return. Two of his members have been eliminated thus far. Kaedan trying to run for his life. His hammer's on cooldown. So is his Aegis, finding a nice little double stun. The wall as well. The snipes needs to be good, connecting on the first and second, but a nice teleport from the hammer, avoiding the third.
Rival pretty much just caught Soar with their pants down. They were not expecting that one in the slightest, and now this is going to give them the opportunity to try and secure that Portal Demon.
It's going to be 750 gold to Rival's pocket. Not the worst case scenario if you're Soar Gaming. It's going to be secured by Rival. Nothing to worry about from their side of things, but I'm still a little hesitant to go for this Fire Giant if I'm the EU squad here.
No, they don't want to risk anything without having JacobHL available. I think that in that instance, it was just Soar putting a little bit too much emphasis into the Geb player, and so able to get off that Cataclysm because of that grouping just allowed Rival to finally get their burst damage off.
This is not the same kind of level 5 Geb that you're looking at. You're looking at level 16 Geb. Rival trying to find StormyRays, stunning him out. Nice little counteraction from themedievaldoc, knocking multiple members up. Kaedan into the sky, scaring Rival away, landing down onto only Gnome. Not the target you really want to lock down as a Thor player.
No, but I think Kaedan was kind of just looking for one of the squishier members of Rival. However, they were able to disperse just in time, and now it's going to be all of Rival kind of just trying to get the retreat off.
Zachsy does not want to let this one go. He stuns Watson. He gets knocked out by JacobHL. Zachsy kills Watson. I think he was invisible there. No?
He was completely invisible, but he was still able to spot him out because he was running straight towards Zachsy, and now it's going to be no force into the Vamana ultimate, just trying to get away.
Nice little stun preventing the rollout from JacobHL. The final judgment not on the mark to kill Gnome quite yet either, but finding that one kill onto Watson gives a 35-second power play for Soar Gaming for a 5v4.
I think Watson was trying to find that stun off onto Zachsy to turn that scenario around. Now Gnome, he was able to get his TP off in time, but JacobHL is in a lot of trouble, surrounded by everybody from Soar.
And that's going to be two dead members from Rival now. A nice little power play. Now, if you're Soar Gaming, you might be feeling a little bit of confidence to go ahead with this Fire Giant objective. Kaedan going to go into the sky, really trying to spot out Rapio, but he's going to catch Gnome instead. Sitting at about half health. No one else is quite in range to follow up, but instead getting that tier 2 tower in mid, gonna extend that goal lead even further for Soar.
I think Kaedan caught Gnome's dash, but it didn't even matter because he didn't have the mana to follow up, unfortunately. But able to pick up that T2 tower, that's still so much gold all at once being added to Soar's pockets. They still are maintaining this 10K experience lead on top of Rival. And so what seemed like a slight flicker of hope for Rival was pretty much just taken away entirely after they made that FG attempt.
And I like what Rapio is doing. He's waiting in this mid lane just to see if there's anyone going to be out of position. Not only that, he's preventing the push from the Phoenix even further. Without a minion wave to complement Soar Gaming, you're not going to eliminate the backdoor protections, making the Phoenix Siege more difficult than it needs to be.
And Kaedan already kind of just trying to get off as many hammer stuns and double taps as possible. This is the stage where Thor is really just that setup potential for Soar.
I mean, if you look at his items now, he has a decent amount of protection. He too has the winged blade. Not only that, he has the shifter shield, so that way if he does drop under 50% health, he'll get that extra protections. And if he does get CC'd, well, guess what? He has that spirit sword for that 15% damage reduction.
The sprint, I think, has been coming up pretty huge for Soar lately, whether they want to chase down everybody on Rival or are just looking to kind of disengage. All around, they've been able to maneuver as a unit, and that's kind of what we brought up at the start of this game, is whether or not they'd be able to stick together to make this composition work, and so far they've done an excellent job of doing that.
Well, Soar and Rival are sticking together to try to make things work around this Fire Giant. Neither squad wanting to position themselves around the Gold Fury. It's just not as valuable quite yet. Kaedan looking for his target. It's going to be actually JacobHL. Every ability in the book dumped on that support.
He wasn't even able to get his Cataclysm off because of the setup, but now it's going to be Rapio getting so much poke. Dobson able to find Shalibur at the long-range snipe.
StormyRays getting dove as well. Rapio trying to eliminate him with Gnome chasing down this Ravana, not able to find the Umbrella Ring. Neither will the knockup, but Kaedan and StormyRays will fall to Rapio and Watson.
But 3 members dead already for the side of Soar. Zachsy's trying to do everything he can with his Fatalis. Watson's up as another Camazotz, just trying to lock down this Chronos.
What's scarier than one bat? It's gonna be 2. Watson transforming into that Camazotz. Medieval Doc is gonna be the last remaining Soar member, but not for long. It's a deicide for Rival. They standing strong with 3 members. Do you think they do Fire Giant here, Todd?
This is a worst case scenario for Soar because JacobHL is actually going to be spawning right now. They can pull this Fire Giant and the Geb can make it in time to tank up the rest of it. They have so much DPS between Rapio and Watson. This is a free Fire Giant for Rival.
Shalibur is going to be the first member from Soar to respawn in 5 seconds. No possible way for him to get into this one without a teleport. The first Fire Giant of the game going to the European squad. Rival making a statement here in this series, trying to get their first land victory.
And that just completely turned everything upside down for Soar. Now with this Fire Giant buff on the side of Rival, and Dobson was even able to spawn into that one. So it's just going to be so much push potential for this squad.
If you're a Rival now with Fire Giant, how do you cut this deficit? Do you go straight for the Gold Fury, or do you start grouping up in this dual lane?
You want to swing it, basically. That's kind of what you want to look for. So they can start by going for the Gold Fury because they already have that T1 tower still remaining in the dual lane. So if they swing from that left to right-hand side, or I guess right to left-hand side, depending on which way you want to look at the map, but either way, it's going to be such a massive, huge chunk of gold just coming their way.
They have 3 tier 2 towers remaining for Soar Gaming. 4,500 gold there. Tier 1 making it 5,000. About 2,500 to 3,000 gold for this Gold Fury to follow up. It's going to be quite a big of a swing here. Rival, they did have a deficit for majority of this game, but they're going to cut it all out once they get all these remaining towers.
They cut a 10K experience difference to less than 4,000. I mean, it's pretty much 3,000 and dwindling right now. This is a tied-up game all over again.
Absolutely. At 37-minute mark, experience is basically out the window. All your carries are sitting at level 20. The support is the last remaining struggling member, but that doesn't really matter as long as he's the same level as the enemy support. But now feeling very confident after that Gold Fury and Tier 1 tower. It's going to be Rival diving that backline. JacobHL getting the beats out of Shalibur. Kaedan trying to re-engage in the backline, connecting onto Watson, forcing out that Aegis. And he's going to try to retreat, but it's JacobHL taking a lot of damage, forcing to retreat there.
It's still Shalibur, though, taking just as much damage from Gnome, and Dobson's up in the air, again able to find him with the long-range snipes. Watson forced out into that Morrigan ultimate, trying to lock down Kaedan, and he is going to fall to this Rom.
And Watson transformed into Rapio's Camazotz, that second bat yet again, doing wonders for Rival. They find 2 hits. JacobHL barely surviving with that sustain from his Fire Giant, getting some more help from his Geb Shield as well. First Phoenix of the game falling. Rival doing work with his Fire Giant buff.
and Zachsy pretty much the only hyper carry left alive for Soar. This is going to be incredibly difficult to try and hold off these remaining T2 towers. I'm pretty sure that this is just free for Rival, and they could even potentially still push another Phoenix because of this Fire Giant regen.
It's also a long respawn timer for both Shaliber and Kaedan. 20 seconds on mid-mage, 25 for that jungle. And that's exactly what Rival are going to do, Taco. They're going to go head down that middle Phoenix. They got the left one earlier on, and now they're going to try to catch out Zachsy. Gnome going to go into his ultimate, going to be stomping down, but it's Watson falling to Stormy.
But it doesn't even matter because the middle Phoenix is still Rival's to take, even though they lost Watson. And now StormyRays kind of just trying to chase off everybody else from Rival, but Zachsy's got to be careful.
Zachsy switching his target at the last moment. JacobHL showed his face and getting stunned out. No one from Rival could really be able to get more than just those 2 Phoenixes, but you got to be feeling really good about that one.
And just like that, this is pretty much Rival pushing so much of an advantage onto Soar now. Having the mid and left-hand Phoenixes removed just means that every other Fire Giant is pretty much no contest.
So what happened to Soar Gaming? Because they had such a comfortable lead, and everything just started dwindling away after that one engagement.
They just got caught out too many times from this Geb Cataclysm knockup. It just permitted Rival to get out that burst potential that they needed to lock down Shaliber. Shaliber kept getting forced out, and when he's retreating from the backline side, he doesn't have a Geb shield coming his way to give him that extra oomph of HP that he needs.
That's very true. Shaliber, though, he does have a decent amount of player damage on the charts here. We're going to see a lot coming from Zachsy as well, feeling very confident with his mobility, opting to change his build ever so slightly. He's really worried about some of this magical damage, going for this Bulwark of Hope on the Chronos. Not something that we're used to seeing here, Taco.
It's really just the Morrigan to me. I think that's primary concern. That stun combination and then the invis to boot, it's just made Watson so dangerous on this Morrigan.
Do you think it's also to negate some of the damage coming out of JacobHL with that Blink Cataclysm knockup?
I don't think so. I don't think it's as concerning for the Geb. You kind of just anticipate that to be a thing. You just want more survivability because if Zachsy can stay alive, he can make the plays happen.
Kaedan taking a lot of damage, forced to use that Aegis amulet, and he's actually going to have to back to base just to sustain some of his health back up. Fire Giant's going to respawn in 15 seconds. That's enough of a window for Rival to get their second one here, because it's going to be Soar Gaming defending their left side and middle against all these fire minions trickling down the lanes.
The main thing here for Soar is they just have to protect Shaliber. He can't afford to die, and he needs to start connecting with these final judgments. Unfortunately, he keeps catching them in that Aegis off of Kaedan's ultimates, and now this is the opportunity.
Soar going in. They're not going to be able to find the stun yet again. Kaedan is off the mark. Even using the sprint was MedievalDoc, and now it's Rival's turn.
And it's going to be Gnome immediately gunning straight for Zachsy, trying to lock out this backline and shut everybody else from Soar away from each other.
And the Titan is taking a lot of damage from the fire minions. Rapio diving with the bat out of hell. The snipes coming through as well. Zachsy getting off a little bit of return damage. MedievalDoc is going to be the first victim. He's going to be holding off some of the engagement with Zachsy. Taken out by Rapio.
That's the last place he wanted Chronos rewind to, but he had no other choice. Either pop the ultimate and get full HP and hope to get the escape, but now that just means that Soar are going to be missing 2 members. There's still a T2 tower remaining in that right-hand side for Rival, but having 5 members strong and a lot of push potential because of that Ram build from Dobson, I just don't see Soar really holding this one off for much longer.
And not only that, their Titan took about half of its health pool during that engagement, losing the team fight, losing the Fire Giant, losing half of their ultimate building structure remaining. It's not looking good here for the North American squad.
And it's going to be Kaedan up in the air yet again. Rival just looking to close this one out. Kaedan already picking off Dobson, but it doesn't even matter. The damage is too much to handle, and Rival finding their first win of the day against Soar.
Very important victory for Rival. You need the boost in your mentality to carry that on in the best-of-3 set. And Rival is not a team that's been very successful in LAN, but this time around in DreamHack Valencia, it's their turf. They're here to play.
EU territory, home field advantage to an extent. I don't know if Spain really counts as much for a rival, but either way, that was an incredibly strong showing. I mean, they were on the back foot for the majority of that mid game and then just immediately turned it up.
Absolutely. Soar Gaming needs to figure out what really went wrong because they had the potential to close out that game. What was it? About an 8,000 to 9,000 goal lead, 10,000 experience to boot. They had the numbers to their advantage, but they couldn't win that one engagement around that Fire Giant.
It was just the loss of target focus. They had excellent target focus up until those final moments, and just allowing Challenger to get shut out so much, it just really caused everything to fall apart. They were relying so heavily on that final judgment off the Thor ultimate that when it doesn't connect and the two are just kind of just hitting into nothing or hitting into aces, it's just incredibly unfortunate.
It was that one deicide from Rival that really started to turn the tide in this first game. We're gonna take a look at this. Dobson found the snipes into Challenger with all the burst damage to follow up. StormyRays was getting dove by Gnome on the big baby as well. Kaedan was taking a lot of damage from Dobson's in hands. Watson here getting a nice kill with Rapio to follow up.
But just look at that spread from Soar and the way that Rival were able to really separate this composition. That's the last thing you want to happen. You don't want to be leaving the Sylvanus with just one member. And sure, it's Zachsy, he's that hyper carry on the Chronos, but there's only so much he can do when the rest of his team is 10 HP getting chased down.
So if you're Soar Gaming here, who are you looking at from Rival to try to shut down in game number 2, whether it's the actual player or the god that they were playing and taking that away in picks and bans?
Honestly, I think that Rapio just started making the plays. He was able to find the setup potential, and JacobHL as well on that Geb. Those cataclysms into the knockups, he was consistently finding at least 2, 3, 4 members time and time again, forcing out so many actives on the side of Soar. They just need to be more careful with their positioning, really.
I wouldn't be surprised if Soar Gaming really tried to focus Jacob like you were mentioning here. Geb was picked very early in the draft for Rival, and depending on what Soar Gaming wants to do in terms of first pick or second pick potential, we could see that that's going to be their target strategy in picks and bans.
I mean, the times that, or the time period that Soar was winning and drastically winning was when they were able to shut out JacobHL, but as soon as they lost sight of that and were unable to really capitalize on punishing this Geb, because eventually Geb is going to be able to use his third ability, use his Cataclysm, and nothing is going to happen. He just has so much survivability between the shields and that ultimate, so it just made things incredibly difficult for the rest of Soar to really lock him down.
And he was firing right off the bat with his Geb play. He really tried to be that main initiator. He opted for the Blink Relic right off the bat at level 1, going for those plays once he hit level 5 for the Cataclysm. And if I'm Soar Gaming, I'm really worried about Jacob, not only JacobHL, but also other members out of Rival, about how aggressive they were, because they did get some of the kills. However, Soar Gaming did a good job farming. Despite being down 0-3, they were catching up in the farm department.
I want to see a little bit more out of Kaedan, however. I think that Soar were also really missing some physical damage throughout that game, and pretty heavily too, because it's not that Challenger and Zachsy weren't dealing damage. They were in the top of the charts for player damage. It's just that everybody else on Soar was kind of just not really there. And sure, you don't really expect too much out of the Ravana, because StormyRays, his primary time period to shine is going to be that early to mid-game stage. But I did want to see a little bit more poke potential really coming out of Kaedan.
And despite the fact that there was so much magical damage that was successful for Soar Gaming, the physical damage for Kaedan, not so much. There was not a need for Rival to build into that physical defense, and it obviously helped the fact that Kaedan wasn't as accurate with those envelope dons. But as we